Hey folks, Jamie Stokes from Royal LePage Frank here. I wanted to do a quick market update. So once in a while I do videos on what the market's like from my perspective. We can research all the statistics that we want, but as a general rule, they do tell us how the market's doing overall, but specific neighborhoods and pockets of certain areas don't reflect what the statistics are saying at all. For example, there's always anomalies. Certain areas are more desirable than others, and you can't look up specific neighborhoods, things like this. So it's best to, I guess, speak to a realtor and ask them about the area that they're doing. So I serve pretty much all of the GTA. I've sold houses from London, Ontario to Lindsay, Peterborough, Kawartha Lakes, all up that area there, as well as Havelock and a little bit north of there. So I know there's a lot more listings coming on. This is just without looking at any statistics. This is just off the top of my head. I'm in a lot of real estate groups, not public ones. They're run by realtors for realtors. And these groups, it's pretty much insider information. We talk about what's going on in the real estate market. We share listings with each other, this sort of thing. So a lot of agents are starting to get multiple offers on their properties. I do think some properties are still staying on the market a little while, but I'm also seeing there's a lot more inventory. I know February was absolutely horrible for listings. There wasn't very much on the market at all. Statistics wise, even though I don't like to talk about statistics very much because I don't feel they're a very good reflection. They just talk about things generally. And I think, specific neighborhoods and areas of the GTA, things like this, don't reflect what's actually going on according to statistics. So like I said, there's a lot of properties that are starting to get multiple offers. Now that's not to say that real estate is back up and booming, but it's looking much better than it was. February was a terrible month. There was not a lot of listings on the market. So I'm noticing a lot more realtors because I have probably a couple thousand realtors on my Facebook and in some of my groups and stuff like this. So we do talk about the market. We do talk about our listings, what's going on in the market, not paying attention to statistics. Not to say that we don't, because obviously it's part of our job to be familiar with what's going on in the housing market. But we do discuss with each other what's going on with our own personal listings. For example, if somebody's getting, 10 offers or 20 offers on a property, most likely they're going to brag about it. So they do share this information, and good for them, good for their sellers. It shows it's a very desirable property. It may be the layout of the house, the size of the house, the neighborhood that it's in, the size of land that it comes with. There may be all sorts of things, finishes, whatever. Some places just drive the prices up, and they get a premium for their house when it's on the market, simply because a lot of people are interested in that area or that specific house. There can be another house in the same neighborhood that can sit on the market for a month, 2 months, 3 months. And there'll be one that will sit on the market for a couple of days and get, 10, 20 offers. So you can't always follow statistics. And I'll say this until I'm blue in the face. Statistics, they give us a general overall view of things, of course. That's what statistics are kind of for. But as for being accurate, I don't think that they're 100% accurate when it comes to talking about real estate in the same terms that realtors do, because we've got insider information. And statistics are compiled from this information, but there's always anomalies, like I said, in the market. Some places demand a premium. It's just the way it is. There can be a house listed 1 month, and the next door neighbor can sell the following month, and the first house will go for 800K, and the one next door will go for 900 or $1 million. It's just the way that it is. It can be finishes. It can just be, it could be the same layout of the house, the same neighborhood, same everything, and just one place for some reason gets a lot more interest than the others. Real estate's kind of weird like that sometimes. So there are more listings coming on the market. All of my realtor friends are posting more listings coming up on the market. So that's good to see. If you're looking to buy, I guess, more inventory is always good. to a certain point anyways, and that's if you're the seller. A balanced market's fantastic for everybody, but rarely is the market like this. It's either a seller's market or a buyer's market. And for a while, we've had a seller's market. So um, things changed a little bit fairly recently, or for the past little while. Yes, they did. Prices went down quite a bit, but I don't know. There's always a lot of information to consider, and a lot of realtors won't talk about this. But what's going on with the banks and stuff like that in the United States? I know one branch was in Toronto, and it was taken over as well. So this does have some people talking and kind of concerned. You know, if the banks are having issues, is it going to be more difficult to get a mortgage from them? You know, is that a possibility, or what's going on with the banks and stuff like this? You know, they might not be as lenient when loaning out, maybe harder to qualify for a mortgage, etc. So there is more inventory coming on the market. This could be, you know, just for a couple of months. The spring market could be just absolutely flooded with houses. Things could die down. You never know. If we had a crystal ball, we'll all be doing very well. Generally, I think obviously the house market is picking up, and things are looking pretty good. I'm curious to see how the spring market turns out. It's we're just about there. So if you ask a realtor, we're always going to say the best time to sell is now. And there's a few reasons for that. The first thing I want to say is we know what the market's like right now. So it's always a good time to sell. You kind of have an idea of what to expect. Again, there's anomalies with things. You can get under or over what you're asking. Some properties may sell for more or less. It's just kind of the way things go. But more inventory is coming on the market for sure. I'm seeing this now. I don't know what the future is going to bring. There's a lot of uncertainties, of course, there always is. But if things change with the bank, they may be changing criteria for giving out mortgages. And if that's the case, I've predicted for months now, I said it would probably happen around April or so. Somebody asked me last year, I said, you know, with the way that things are going financially, because I read a lot of articles into the future for predictions and follow the market and stuff a little bit. So with the way that things are going, I'm kind of concerned about rentals. If you're a landlord, the landlord-tenant board, and the government's pretty tough. You can have tenants in there that don't pay rent, and it can last for, you know, better part of a year. In the meantime, they can go in there and live rent-free, which is a big problem for landlords. I mean, I know there's landlords that have lost houses over it, and I don't think the tenants realize that if the landlord can't pay the mortgage, the bank's going to repossess the house anyway, so they're going to have to move regardless. I don't understand why people do this. It is intentional sometimes, absolutely. Sometimes people just run into financial difficulties, but that's life. So I know a lot more people are also getting rid of rentals as well. Some people are doing well with rentals. You know, they've got good tenants in there. Some people have bad tenants. But, you know, if you've got a bad tenant in there, or if you're a tenant that doesn't pay rent, this can financially cripple somebody for life. It could end up costing them their house. Usually, landlords aren't making as much money as the tenants think that they are. You know, you have to take into consideration appliance repairs, any damages that happen to the property taxes, insurance. After a while, they're going to have to replace the roof. They're going to have to replace the windows. I mean, it's not like it has to be done every year or every 5 years or something, but these are things that the landlord has to save up for and take into consideration as well. On top of this, mortgages. I see what mortgages cost, so I can say from speaking to a lot of tenants that they have absolutely no clue what a mortgage, a monthly mortgage actually is. You know, they're expecting to get $1 million property, and they want the rent to be like $1,500 a month or something like this. But it's not realistic for somebody, the landlord, a stranger, to put down thousands of dollars a month for somebody to live in their property. paying less than what it's costing the landlord. I mean, overall, the property is going to appreciate in value. So from that perspective, it's good for the landlord, yes. But mortgage rates and things like this right now are not very good. So you need to be mindful of how much mortgages actually cost. The down payment for a house deposit. The landlord has to cover insurance, repairs, all kinds of things. There's a lot of things that tenants don't consider because being a tenant versus being a landlord, the landlord has a lot of additional costs. You can find articles on how it's better to be a homeowner or it's better to be a tenant. There's benefits to both. Obviously, it depends on, I guess, your overall game plan. I mean, I don't think a lot of landlords are making as much bank as tenants think that they are. And, a lot of tenants, I don't want to razz on tenants, but a lot of tenants, they don't really care to hear what the mortgage costs are or what the monthly expenses for carrying a tenanted property are. Yes, there are landlords that do make excellent money off of rentals for sure, especially, cottages are another great investment. But overall, things aren't as fantastic for landlords as tenants often think. But I just wanted to throw that out there quickly. Getting back to the market, I'm going to reiterate that the housing market seems to be picking up a little bit. There's always, even in a bad market, there's always going to be anomalies and stuff like that. I had a talk with somebody the other day, and we were talking about bank foreclosures and people not being able to pay their mortgages and stuff like this, different scenarios. I've had people reach out to me in the past and they're like, do you have like lists of for bank foreclosures, things like this? And I was telling them a story about, I've been doing real estate, I think, for about 9 years now, 8 or 9 years. And I've only ever seen one bank foreclosure that I showed to a client. So it was actually a few blocks from my own house, and the place needed a lot of work, like at least $100,000 worth of work, I would say. So it was put on under market value, I think, I don't know, probably $80,000 or something like that. But taking into how much work it needed and renovations and stuff like this, because the place was absolutely trashed, all flooring throughout the entire house. The first and second floor needed to be ripped out and replaced. Appliances needed to be redone because the appliances in there were ancient. The place needed to be painted. Light fixtures, light switches, everything in this property needed to be updated. Everything. So with bank foreclosures or repossessions, whatever you want to call them, what happens is people will come to me and they'll ask for, if I have any access to bank foreclosures or whatever, and I'll tell them no, it doesn't quite work like that in Canada. How things are here is we can be called up by the court to list a property or something like this, or connections through the bank, which I personally don't have. Some are fortunate enough to have connections with the bank, where if there's properties that need to be sold off, they'll reach out to the specific realtor. So we're required, as a realtor in Ontario, I'm required to sell the property for fair market value. And that doesn't mean, just money that's owing on it or taxes that are owing on it. Fair market value is obviously determined by the market. So I'll give an example of this specific property. I think it was listed at like $420,000. Other houses in the neighborhood were selling for about, I don't know, $80,000 or $100,000 more on average. But this place needed that much money worth of work. So really, it wouldn't have made sense to buy it and, spend a couple months paying a mortgage and doing all the renovations anyways. I mean, in the long run, it wasn't really worth it. You have a lot of competitors when it comes to properties that are listed under market value, because you have Yes, there are realtors that are investors. There's realtors that want to buy the property if it's cheap enough. There's investors that want to buy it, put some money into it and rent it out. You have flippers, renovators, first-time home buyers, because the price range is lower. All of these people are fighting over these properties, and we're required, as a realtor, I'm required to sell it for fair market value. If I don't, I can get into a lot of trouble for this, because the bank has to be paid, the taxes have to be paid, the realtor has to be paid. And then on top of that, if there's any principal into the house, the owner receives whatever's left over from proceeds of the sale. So we can't sell something, if it's an $800,000 house and there's $200,000 owing to the bank or to taxes or whatever. We can't sell it for $200,000 just to cover that cost. We have to, make sure that everybody gets paid out of everything, the bank, the mortgage company, blah, blah, whatever. Everybody needs to make their money. And the owner, despite being behind on payments, they still have, they've lived in the house for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever length of time they've lived in the house. They've built up a principal in that house as well, so they need to be reimbursed for that. So really, when it comes to foreclosures and discounted houses, very rarely is there an opportunity to be had. I know some realtors are going to argue with me out there, because yeah, there are good deals on the market for sure. I'm going to say that chances are, if there's good deals to be had, there's probably some connections in there. As a general rule, for the general public, I'm going to say there's probably not very good deals out there. I mean, if it's going through a realtor, if it's going through the bank, if it's going through all these different places, there's somebody in there that's going to have a connection to somebody to buy it or whatever. So the chances, even for me to buy a place that's, well under market value, that needs renovations or whatever, it's pretty slim pickings. Chances of me getting something under market value are next to absolutely not. So when it comes to this sort of sale, power of sale or bank foreclosures, whatever, there's not really any deals to be had. There can be, but it's pretty rare. And even being in real estate for 8 or 9 years, I don't have access to them. I do see some houses that are listed pretty low, but that's probably market value for that area or whatever. And like I said, I'm required to sell for fair market value so that everybody gets paid, including the owner, because they've got money into it. I mean, the bank's really the owner, but the person who's been living there and paying the mortgage for the past several years, however long that is. So the real estate market is picking up. February, like I said, was a terrible month. Just to recap on things, some properties are getting multiple offers, which is a good sign, if you're selling. Springtime is typically the busiest time of the year, obviously. So we're expecting things to pick up a little bit. Some realtors are predicting that we'll have, almost a typical spring. I'm not sure about that, because I feel like the banks are going to be a lot tighter about lending out money for mortgages and stuff like that. I also want to tap into and say that a very, very large majority of Canadians are going to private lenders now for mortgages. They're steering away from banks and going to private lenders, which I don't remember the statistic off the top of my head, but it's like 70% or something like this. From what I read, about 70% of people are going to private lenders now, which has put a dent in our banks here. But the criteria has become a lot more strict for qualifying for a mortgage. So I'm not going to get into specifics on mortgages, as I tell my mortgage agent friends. That's not my specialty. I'm not a licensed mortgage broker or anything like that. And what I recommend to people, when you're in business like I am, stay in your own lane. Sometimes lawyers get involved in things and make comments that they shouldn't. Sometimes mortgage agents do, oh, you paid too much, or I have a realtor that can, give you cash back or whatever. That's terrible, terrible advice and terrible business, because you're going to burn bridges and you're going to burn out your name if that's shared that that's the type of business that you're doing, you won't be in business for very long. Always be professional, treat people with respect, including buyers and sellers. Be fair to everybody. One last thing I'm going to touch on. So April 1st, which is, right around the corner, we're supposed to, as realtors in the real estate industry, we're supposed to have the Trust in Real Estate Services Act, which is, they're saying it's not a replacement of the Real Estate Business Brokers Act and things like this. There's a lot more paperwork that are coming out. There's a lot, and I mean a lot of uncertainties and unanswered questions. So I'm thinking that from the videos that I've seen with the Toronto Real Estate Board and Durham Real Estate Board discussing the Trust in Real Estate Services Act, the things that are going to be changing, they said that there's new forms coming out, which obviously there's going to have to be. New forms coming out. One thing that some people are, I guess, getting excited about, which I don't understand, is a new thing about this open bidding process. As we all know, it doesn't matter if you're a buyer or a seller, you're aware that there's a closed bidding process here. We're not allowed to disclose currently information of any offers on the property. We are required to disclose how many offers, but no other information. We can't discuss price or any terms of the offers, nothing like this. So a new option is to have open bidding. Now, I haven't heard a single realtor or seller agree that there's going to be any seller in the foreseeable future. If they're properly educated, which they should be by the realtor and their lawyers, they shouldn't. Chances are of them wanting to participate in an open bidding process is pretty slim. Everybody that I've talked to says, once it's explained to the seller that they can opt for an open bidding process, I can't see how they would want to do it, just because it's in the seller's best interest to have a closed bidding process. So for them to opt into having an open bidding process, I just don't think that it's something that they're going to do. This is just my opinion, and make sure that you ask all the questions that you can if you're a buyer or a seller in regards to the bidding process. But there's, the Trust in Real Estate Services Act for April 1st supposed to come into effect. I don't see things being ready quite yet. There's too many unanswered questions. I don't know where they're in the paperwork process, because there's a lot of things that are supposed to be rewritten. There's paperwork that is being added to current paperwork. There was a question in one of the videos I saw. They said, is this document going to replace this previous document that we used? And they said, no, it's not going to be replacing it. It's going to be in addition to. So, my impression of things is basically that there's going to be a lot more paperwork for us to do, which I don't mind. That's okay. I've never had a complaint filed on me or anything of the nature since I've been doing real estate. Not ever once have I had a complaint or any ethics violations or anything like this. I take my job very seriously. It's just not worth it to be fraudulent and to be shady in business, because you're always going to get caught. There's notes and there is files on everything that we do. And this is exactly how people get caught. There's a lot of sketchy things. For example, mortgages, 80% of mortgages, I think it was Scotiabank that said it, that 80% of their mortgage paperwork that comes in is flagged as fraudulent or possibly fraudulent. So that tells you the scope of things. I've said in my past videos, as a realtor, I have absolutely no participation in anything mortgage related. So, all these past things, fraudulent activity with mortgage brokers and stuff like that. Everybody that I do business with, realtors that I've done business with in the past, I've seen some of that aren't very professional. I've tried to do business with ones that have houses listed. And for example, they won't even respond They're given an offer that expires, 11 o'clock at night. They won't respond for like a couple days after. I don't understand the unprofessionalism, but it's terrible. I wish that there was a way for, fines to be bumped up. I know there was changes to fines for realtors who are being unprofessional. I really wish that we could get rid of all the realtors who don't play fairly and who don't follow the rules. There's no room in this business for people like that. And you can ask any professional realtor, if you're in any of the realtor groups, we're the first ones to not want the unprofessional realtors around because it gives all of us a bad name. And I know the general public as is doesn't care for real estate salespeople. So we don't want anybody in the business giving us a bad name. So we're the first ones that will kind of not want to do business with them or report them, things like this. So the new Trust in Real Estate Services Act, I don't know how much changes it's going to make. I wish there was an easier way. I think fines have gone up as far as I'm aware for ethics violations and stuff like this. But I really wish the real estate industry would get cleaned up. It's interesting because I've made comments about this before, and I think that CBC really has a hate on for realtors. I don't know if somebody there had a bad deal with a realtor or something like this, but I don't discredit and don't dislike them entirely because they are exposing some of the bad stuff that goes on in the real estate industry. But I don't want everybody painting us with the same brush, because all of the realtors that I know that work at my brokerage that I've done deals with in the past and stuff like this, all of them are very professional, and I would trust them to do my own real estate transactions. I would recommend them to my own parents and my own family. They're honest, they're professional people. So I would have no problems. I mean, it doesn't matter what business you're in or whatever. There's always going to be bad apples in every group. And I hope the general public doesn't think that, all realtors are not professional and do shady business, because it is so far from the truth. It's not even funny. Naturally, for headlines and stuff like that, people are going to do investigations on us, and they're going to find a couple of dirty agents. Of course, I mean, this is in every single business. There's not a business out there that doesn't have bad people, but I think by upping fines and canceling licenses on the spot, I think is the way to go. And I would love to see that. If it's something where not just somebody ought to know better, but if they're doing something intentionally and there's evidence of them doing something that they should know is against the rules, they should have their license pulled immediately, and any money that they made off of that deal or whatever, that should be stripped of them. It doesn't make sense for somebody to make $10,000 on a real estate deal and get a $5,000 fine. They need to actually lose something for doing ethics violations and stuff like this. And I'm not the only one that thinks this way. All the professional realtors have no ethics violations or no problems in their business. And if you're going to do shady business in real estate, you will not last 100%. Like I said earlier, the other agents will out you. They will not want to work with you. It's really that simple, because it gives everybody a bad name. So we don't want any of that. But let's see how things continue here for the spring market for real estate in the Greater Toronto Area. And if you're looking to buy or sell, don't hesitate to reach out to me. It's Jamie Stokes from Royal LePage, and my telephone number is 289-927-5991.